Tone, it's time to talk about our big show in April. First, I want to give a big thanks to Schedulicity and to Cosmoprof Beauty for sponsoring the show.
In Maryland, April 7th and 8th.
That's right. So we're actually doing a show and classes, and we have the amazing Presley Poe and her friends. So tell us about her friends.
We have Blush in Maine, Sarah Jane Maples.
Who just won an AHA.
She sure did. We got Updo Guru, Casey Powell for those amazing bobby pin sculptures.
It's amazing, right?
Yeah.
And from Project Runway, we have Jackie and Lynn coming in, and they're going to show some editorial work on the stage. And Lynn
Huge
does
fans.
And Lynn does the quickest updos in the world, so he's going to teach some of that as well. But then tell them what's happening right before the show.
Right before the show and right after the show, we have Johnny Cash Livingston doing some tattoo barbering, brother.
Yeah, and he's open for questions and stuff too. So, if you have any questions while you watch him work.
Yes, sir. Up close and personal.
Also, another big thanks to Cosmoprof for sponsoring the Shadow Presley Poe. And we're going to have the winner there.
Yep. Miss Stephanie.P.Hair.
Yeah, so you'll get a chance to meet her as well.
And a big shout out to our boy, Ben Mullen.
Mullen.
Yeah, who's going to MC the whole event.
Can't wait to hear him. So again, all information will be available at PresleyPoeandFriends.com. Check it out. Check out the classes, and it's going to be a fantastic weekend. Hey, welcome to your day off. My name is Corey. Of course, I'm sitting with my best bud, Tony. What's up, Tony?
What's happening, brother?
So we got a good guest today, man.
Yeah, we're actually sitting in one of his salons.
I can't wait. I don't even want to give away anything, so I don't even want to get away with the salons or anything like that. I kind of want to just get in, but our guest today is Kelly Gorsuch, and we actually met Kelly. Although people were like, "You got to talk to Kelly."
Is it Gorsuch or Gorsh?
Gorsuch, like
Gorsuch.
the Supreme Court Justice.
Oh, Gorsuch. Yeah, I'll mess that up.
It's not important.
So we first met Kelly. Actually, we were in LA when we did the Modern Salon Digital Summit, and we sat down and I think we had a cup of coffee or something, and I thought we hit it off really well, and we just kept. Well, now we're doing it.
Dude, stuff that he's doing, you know what I mean? It's just so intriguing how just entrepreneurial not only his mind, but he's just totally hands-on. He literally hands-on.
Completely. Like, he builds out all of his own salons, and he designs them and does them.
He builds his own furniture in his shops.
That's incredible.
With his own hands, right?
How does he have time for anything? How the hell do you have time to talk to us, right?
Yeah, we're like Kelly Cardenas. We made him we made him our friend.
That's right. He's our friend. He's our friend whether he likes it or not.
Yeah, whether he wanted to be or not.
Exactly. That's cool. So, Mr. Kelly Gorsuch.
There you go.
Boom.
Well done.
Way to go, Corey.
Welcome to your day off.
I'm happy to be here.
Thanks, man. Again, yeah, man. We've been wanting to talk to you even before kind of LA, but it was really nice to kind of sit down with you in LA and just kind of get to know you. And
he's been on our radar for a while. We just never had the opportunity, nor it was nice how the whole thing came about, the transition of meeting and how the just the relationship has developed.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So, Kel, kind of tell our audience where are you in the industry, or how many you're a salon owner and how many salons you own and all that kind of stuff.
Let's learn about Kelly. Where are you from?
I'm boring. I'm from this area. I'm from D.C. in Northern Virginia.
Uh-huh.
I'm from like a rural town called Warrington, Virginia. I moved here, fairly early in life as a teenager. I went to hair school at 17.
Oh, wow.
Turning 41 this week, so I'm pretty excited about that. But I'm just,
Happy birthday.
I'm from a family of hairdressers, and, my whole life has been like, I've been devoted to this industry, like inside and out.
So you like sweeping the floors at 12 and stuff?
I didn't really spend a lot of time in my parents' salon or anything like that. Like, I grew up with my grandfather, not my parents, and, grew up poor, and I saw the industry, and the industry wasn't like exciting for me, to be honest. And I just kind of looked at it like it was a way out of poverty, and that's what kind of drove me to it, because I knew I could get into it fairly fast. I graduated high school my junior year. I knew I could get into it fairly fast and start making like a little bit of ROI like immediately. That would like take me and put me in control of my own life. And I think that's one of the most important things that hairdressing can do for people is like kind of give them control of their own lives.
That, you know what? That's so well said, right?
Graduated high school in your junior year.
I went summer school. I had to take government all summer with a bunch of thugs.
I had to take summer school after my senior year to graduate.
I graduated when I was 19. All I did was summer school. Well, he did say thugs, right?
Yeah, it was fun. It was fun.
That's all. So you started hair school at 17?
I started hair school at 17. I was,
Did you need to get waivers or anything? Like, did your parents have to sign off?
No,
or anything?
I graduated high school. That was the only requirement. So, went straight into it. It was a ball. It was fun. It was like the industry was crazy and it was exciting, but at the same time, like I was 100% focused. I'm not one of these people that had like this innate talent, you know. I had to work for everything, you know. Like I couldn't comb hair. I never used a comb in my own hair, and it's just like I remember like that was like the most stressful part of the industry was like just learning how to use a comb and section hair. Section hair like drove me to tears like several times. I was this athlete, football player, like macho dude, and like I went into this industry I knew nothing about, and other than watching my family do it, and just it was 100% was way out for me. And then 23 years later, or 20, I don't even know what it is now, 24 years almost, and like the industry's a whole different beast. And I own two 50-chair hair salons, one in Richmond, Virginia, and one in Washington, D.C. I have 4 barbershops called Barber of Hell's Bottom.
Wow.
I'm just doing it. Like we're working on we've been working on a product line for 16 years. Like that is if you want to do that right, that's a hard game.
Is it on the market now?
Takes a lot of money.
Still in the work?
Yeah, we have stuff. We have stuff that we've used in the salon for years that like were products that we wanted to make and play with, and now we're like really putting some capital into that and kind of going now that we're like in a better position.
That's incredible. So 2 salons. So you told us a story in LA that I've wanted to get into. Like, how did you become a barbershop owner?
Oh man, barbershop owners. It's funny. Everyone now like comes up to me if they know me at all. They'll come up to me and be like, "Man, the barbershop thing." And I'm always like, I have 2 badass salons, right? Like, Immortal Beloved is like a huge brand in itself. So the whole thing for me was, I get into things where I feel like there's a void in the market. I got into hairdressing because I felt like there was a void in the upscale hairdressing market in Washington, D.C. I never wanted to be a salon owner. Like, I made really good money behind the chair, and I didn't feel like that was a route I wanted to take because of the stress level. Looking back, I wish I would have stuck to that, but because ownership is stressful, day in and day out. And there's good money behind the chair, to be honest with you. And, like, it took me about 14 years for me to start paying myself more than I made behind the chair.
Wow.
So
are you still working behind the chair today?
I don't really. I mean, I do a couple clients here and there, but I wouldn't say that I work behind the chair anymore. I don't think it's right to the guys. Like, I feel like it's as an owner, like, you got to be an owner. And I felt a couple years ago that the chair took away too much of my efforts for the guys.
Right. So then you're focusing on yourself instead of the rest of your crew.
Right, exactly. And I just didn't think that was fair. I mean, that's not what they're paying me for.
Right. So how'd the barbershops come up?
So the barbershops, we had a salon. Like the first Immortal Beloved, I'd separated from a partner from my first salon. I started Immortal Beloved, and we just got. I mean, in 3 years, we just packed the place out. We had like 18 chairs. We just packed this place out, and I had 2 or 3 guys at the time that only did men's hair. And we have always allowed people to focus. Like if they only wanted to do women's hair, they did women's hair. If they only wanted to do like Vidal Sassoon cuts and like on women's hair, like I let them drill down as far and be as focused as possible on that. So we had a couple guys that came to me and were like, I no longer want to do women, I just want to do men. And I was like, cool, let's see what happens, and they did that. And then I was just like, now I had a salon of I think I had 3 full-time men's only hairdressers, and I was bursting at the seams in this location. And I was like, shit, I got to get these guys out of here so I can make some money. And so I just decided that I was going to open up a barbershop. And backing up a little bit, Peru's had kind of stepped away from the grooming lounge.
Right.
And, the grooming lounge, I don't care what anybody says, the grooming lounge started this game, right? They, started that, barber stylist game. Before that, it was just corner barbershops or salons. And they were the first ones to kind of, see that niche in the market and start to, elevate the game a little bit.
Certainly upscale it, right?
And,
upscale the game.
And bring the two together. Bring a touch of the upscale, but they weren't necessarily running an upscale salon like what I was running. So I felt like I could compete really well against them. And when Peru's left, it really kind of opened the door because it became easier, right? And people started leaving there, and so we were like, okay, this is the time. Time is now to strike. We did it, and I fully expected to break even. I was like, let me get these guys out of here. I'll break even on the barbershop, and I'll crush with the salon by adding more female-only hairstylists. And when I say that, I mean the clients, not the stylists.
Right.
That gets confusing. And but we opened this barbershop, man, and I was blown away. It was a different animal entirely, and it was the right time for it. It was the right time for guys to get an elevated experience, and we charge a lot of money. And I mean, if you ever want to see people go nuts on Instagram, take a picture in one of my barbershops and accidentally get the price list in the background.
Right.
Barbers go nuts, but they don't realize that just like in food, you have levels of food, you have levels of barbershops, and we're not the bottom, we're not the middle, we are definitely that elevated premier level, and we need all of the levels. It's not there's people out there that want each one individually, and I think it's important that we understand that there's a difference.
Did you freak out when you realized how the Hell's Bottom just took off? You got rid of those guys so you can make room to bring in more women in your salon, and realized when you opened up the barbershop, there was just as profitable. I mean,
yeah. It was. Well, first, remember that we were building a barbershop inside of our salon, so it was years in the making. So when we opened, we hit now that year was an interesting year because I got delayed. I was waiting for the building to get built, and all across. So I had already had a design in my mind that I was going to do for the space, and that year, every barbershop across the country opened was vintage styling. Everybody was throwback, and
right.
And I was dude, I'm in a unique position here to go a different way. So we started off with a lighting budget. Our lighting's really high end, elevated there, and basically our lighting budget was what most people used to budget for the whole build out of a barbershop.
Whoa.
And so we were able to have some fun. I'm lucky enough to have one of the best hair woodworkers in the world is my best friend, Caleb Woodard out of Nashville, and he helped me build out the space, and we talk design constantly, and I live that design lifestyle and making. I just like to make things pretty.
Right.
And so we built it, and we knew what we were we were we had already trained everybody to do straight razor shaves. We knew we were going to elevate it to it, and it just blew up. And I wasn't expecting it. Nobody was expecting it. And right now I could have 10 of these things in Washington, D.C., but you start to dilute, and you start to understand that there just isn't that much quality out there who's willing to put the guest first in our industry. And I think that's something really important. You guys know that I value my anonymity. I don't want a bunch of followers. I'm not trying to push my name out there. It's amazing what you can accomplish when you don't want the credit. I can't remember which president said that. When I go to a hair show, people don't know me, and I can just sit in the cut and I hear things that they would never tell. They would never talk about around me. And people come up to me if they know me. They every hair salon owner I know right now is trying to get into barbering. And it's a difficult game. You really have to understand that inside and out. And I don't think a lot of people really get what's going on at the top level. They're just opening barbershops, and there's really not a lot of money in barbering,
Well, I want to back up a little bit. So Can you walk us through what like a barbering guest experience was? You were talking about an elevated guest experience, like from Hell's Bottom. Well, like what does that look like?
Well, let's just talk about what it isn't, right? Like, most of the time in the barbering community, we're talking about a barbershop, corner barbershop. You walk in, there's Playboys in there. Like, soon as you walk in, the magazines are old. Like, you got some fold-up chair to sit on, right? Spaces aren't really well designed. They're like a lot of times very masculine, right? And you start to like go, okay, it's a quick service. I gotta wait, like it's not comfortable. And then I get up and I'm like, a lot of times I gotta just like basically go with whoever's available, right? So our thing is like, you go in, you have an appointment, you have a block of time. We take more time than you would, like we're book out 45 minutes to an hour, right? We're charging you a lot of money, but you're basically buying your time back, right? Because we're not wasting your time. You're not sitting there when it's unnecessary. You come in, you're buying your time back, right? You walk in, we've got good updated like magazines to chill if you're going to sit there for a couple of seconds. Like, it's comfortable couches and like cool areas to sit in, good spaces.
That was, what a perspective. I'd never even thought about looking at it like that. You're coming in and you're buying your time back. Instead of sitting there waiting a half hour for the next guy available, especially on a popular, corner barbershop, it can be a line, right? And you're waiting there 30, 40 minutes. Here you're buying your time back. I love that.
Right.
Yeah.
Buy your time back.
I mean, and then just the whole experience for it, right? Like the barbershop is like a center of the community and it needs to be a safe space. And like for us, there's really a conversation that's bigger than we have time for here, but like, that needs to be a safe space for everyone. Like whether like they're gender fluid or they're women. Like if a woman comes in there and they want a fade, we're doing it. Right. And it's not like this uncomfortable environment where like the dudes are all hooting and hollering about like the ladies, and like it's more of an elevated experience. You go in, it's just like in an elevated hair salon, right? You're getting shampoos, you're getting conditioners, you're getting like with the hot shaves, you're getting hot towels, you're getting cold towels, you're getting moisturizers, you're getting the process. Like everything's an elevated process, and it's like it starts from the time you come in to the time you leave. But you have to live that lifestyle. It's got to be authentic for the barbers. It can't be them first.
Every time he says shave, I get a little nervous. I start to shake a little bit and stuff.
Right, since he just shaved his beard off.
I just shaved my beard off for the first time in years.
Sucker.
Do you have a different pricing tier, or is it?
Yeah, pricing is a big thing. I'm glad you spoke on that because it's something that like I don't really readily give, so I'll give it to you and your listeners. But the pricing model is, I think, where our industry went wrong. And
let's talk about that.
Yeah, let's get it. Let's drill down on this.
This is the junior graduated entrepreneurial mind here.
So, I think most people price from a perspective of ego. Like we just guess. We're like, oh, you know what? I'm 50. And I don't think that's right. Like,
well, if he's 50, I'm better than him.
Yeah,
so I'm 55.
And like salons open up all the time, and they're like, well, we see Immortal charging like up to 300. We can charge like 150, 200, but like, no, you can't. You haven't earned that. You don't have the base that you're charging. You don't have that demand that's going to be asking for those prices. So, what people don't understand is pricing is there to suppress like your demand, right? So, in a given day, that scale should slide. We're unique, right? Like every day we could change our prices if we wanted to based on the market, right? Because we do a different thing every day, right? So the best way to tell this is in a story. Someone once came to me and they were like rant and raving about like this dude up the street. I just got out of this meeting. This dude up the street's booked for 6 months. Guy's booked for 6 months. I was like, here I am, like my life's falling apart. I'm like opening another salon. Like I just separated from my last partner. Everything, my hair's on fire. I'm like ready to open and I can't figure out a product line. So I'm like listening to this product rep rant and rave, and I'm like, dude, come back to me. And she like about the 5th time she brought this guy up, I was like, all right, stop. Let's talk about this. And she was like, what? And I was like, okay, how long is this guy booked out? She's like 6 months, like 6-8 months. You can't get in with him. And I was like, okay, that guy's the dumbest person I've ever heard of. Like, let's move on. And she's like, what do you mean? And I was like, I don't mean this in a rude way, because being busy is a choice. You got to make it, but like, really, what does it say to the guest? Right? And I was just like, so nobody can get in. So it's an ego thing, right? So great, you're booked out 6 months in advance. How much does he charge? $50. All right, well, $50. Let's be generous. He can do 12 in a day, right? Let's just say that he's going to make $600 today, right? I charge $300 an hour. I do 2 clients an hour. Like, I'm never booked. I made more before I took this meeting with that lady that day at like 11 o'clock in the morning, and I was like, so who's right? Right? Like, I always leave openings in my book a couple days out because I want new guests to come in. Like, I want that pricing tier to be able, I want them to be able to pay my highest price. Like, if they want to come in and like pay my highest price, then I want it to be available for them, because it's about them. It's not about me, right? Like, it's not my ego, it's them. I'm there to take care of guests.
But wouldn't some say that charging $300 is also an ego thing?
No, well, it's only I didn't make the price, they priced it, right? So like, if I start at $100 and they're paying it, right? And then I'm like, I'm 2 weeks, 3 weeks booked. Who's right? Who's wrong? Right? Like, they want to pay more to get in because they want to buy their time back. They want to look good more often, and I think that like, you got to allow them to do that, and so it's really not like, if this is thinking about this differently, it's guest hospitality first. Guest hospitality, and I can't beat that into the ground enough. Like, if I charge $100 now, I like grandfather those guys in at $100, and I can jump up my prices whenever I want. I don't have to wait a year, 2 years, 3 years. If I'm 90% booked or I'm scared I'm getting too busy, I can jump it up to 125. I can jump it up to 150.
And you'll do that with your current guest, or you'll
the current guests always get grandfathered.
So whatever they're paying, that's it.
Whatever they're paying.
Somebody's getting a $35 haircut, Kelly.
100%. Someone's getting a cheap haircut. Now, once you get up too high, you got to raise up your base. Mm-hmm. So there is some like, and then you have to figure out how to tweak that to make that work for you. I mean, there's not like a perfect model for it. We've tweaked it for 20 years.
Right.
So
obviously it's working. I mean, you have 2 52-chair salons. You have 4 barbershops.
It's amazing.
And, we're sitting here on a Tuesday in the middle of the afternoon, and it's rocking in here.
It's rocking.
Yeah, I mean, we're in the middle of winter. It's like, this is slow. We'll do like 100 clients in here today. Like, on a busy day, we'll do 200 plus, and like,
that's amazing. I actually want to back up a little bit for something that you said, like, blew my mind, and that was like, I didn't raise my prices, they did.
Right. Yeah. I mean, they're setting their prices. You take your ego out of it. You don't ever touch it. They tell you you're too busy, you raise your prices for the new guests, right? And like, it's always a circulating thing. Some of your old ones are going to leave, and you're going to like always have more space for new ones. Like, this is something that you could really start to think about, like, on a different perspective and really win, long term. And I think that like, our problem in our industry, we talk about this all the time, is like, the price of bread, the price of milk, the price of gas has gone up over the last 40 years, but the price of hairdressing has kind of gone down because we don't set our prices well. And I think it's all from an ego. It's like, hey man, $50, like, no man, that's too much to charge. And it's like, you don't get to, like, that's you don't get to tell the guests what they want to pay, right? Like, they tell you what they want to pay. You got to get out of the way and like, listen to it.
That's so well said. Now I'm gonna have to go home and recalculate. Right. My clients are at home like, yeah, we're gonna get a break.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't work for everybody, but it's something. It's a perspective that people. They always say they like, it can't work, and then I make it work, and it's like, okay,
That's
right.
amazing.
But I love the whole customer service driven.
Yeah, completely. You know what? And that's something that isn't new to the industry, right? We've been talking about that for 40 years.
Yeah.
Do you think although we've been talking about it, are we still failing as an industry, do you think? Or not necessarily failing. I think that's a little overstated, but could we do better?
I mean, man, that's like such a loaded question. Like,
right.
I look at the industry and I'm scared, like, I don't know. Like, well, when I got into the industry, people weren't necessarily retiring from it. They were working till they were dead behind the chair.
Yeah, that's what Daniel Mason Jones said.
Yeah. And I think for the last 20 years, we've really come out of that, and we've learned to make money in this industry. And like, the prices of coloring went way up. Painting like really helped that out. And there's been some like remarkable things. Like men are starting to pay more money for their haircuts. That's huge. But they're now leaving the salons again, and going back to barbershops. So you're losing that income from the salon perspective. So yeah.
But like in your case, like you're not losing the money from the barbershop perspective, right? Because you're charging what it's worth, or they're setting the price.
Yeah, the clients are setting the price. I mean, it's also you get to a point where it's kind of capped, where you're like, okay, like I don't see a lot more value in going like too crazy, and so you kind of get to a point where it's like comfortable.
Mm-hmm. Right. So I guess you're still on your way to that, right? So
yeah, I mean, some people are, some people are not. Like we have, I have one of my barbers is the third highest producing person in my company.
Wow.
And that's remarkable. Like I have one open chair at 9th Street, which is where we started it all. And, for someone to walk in there tomorrow, we'll make $75K this year. Like guaranteed, they could be mediocre. I would never put them on the floor. Which is why it's sitting there open,
right.
Because we don't have anybody. We have 2 people training right now, and no one's trained up to the point to take it. And the local thing, we're kind of taking all those elevated barbers already that are working inside of the city. So we're still scouting, but
So when you
process.
said 75K, are you saying that there's 75K in the chair, or the actual stylist or barber will walk?
The barber will walk, yeah.
Will walk with 75K.
Yeah. I mean,
that's amazing. That's amazing. Those are amazing numbers to think of as a barber, because still in my head, I'm still back at like mom and pop kind of like barbershop.
paying $15 for.
And there's absolutely, like I got a buddy who I grew up playing basketball with that works 2 doors down here, and he still charges like $20 for barbered haircut, and he we've talked a ton. He just doesn't feel our thing, and like it is what it is, right? Because for us, it's like a barber stylist is someone that typically went to cosmetology, can really cut the top, can really work scissors, and a lot of times barbers kind of just want to get in there and get that fade done, and like it's all about blurred lines. But to us, like the haircut is like about 30% of the process, right? Like it's really about how you treat the guest, how you run that chair, and like how you make them feel at the end of the day, and like the story you tell doing it.
That just blows me away. You're able to just spend that much time focusing on not only the barbershop, but we're up here in Immortal Beloved, and just we walked in here. You were doing a hands-on cutting class for your crew, and I mean, as a stylist, I would definitely would want a owner that cared about me like you care about your guys, and you could just totally see it in everything you're doing.
Yeah, weirdly, I mean, like I love people. I'm not like a people person per se, but I love people, and training is a lifestyle like anything else. Like it's important to give back to this is my way of giving back to the industry. Like I put a bunch of people out there. Like I have people who are training my techniques and the way I look at hairdressing to like people in San Diego and like LA and New York, and I have some buddies down in like New Orleans. Like like I have people that I've trained through the years who have moved on and now are training other people, and to me that's the best way to touch the industry.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit. It's come up a couple times on the podcast. Like if a stylist leaves your facility, I'm sure it's happened once or twice, like how do you process that?
It's tough, and they're family. So when they leave, it's hard. It's like losing family members. You give all that time, but like you do this for the people who stay, not for the people that leave. That's the easiest way to look at it. Like I don't look outside of my salon. I don't care what anybody's doing up the street. It makes no difference. If I take care of my guest and my stylist, like I win, period.
Right. It's true.
If you have a walkout, you're going to rebuild. You're going to do it again. And you can do it again. Like, like every salon that I've ever worked at, I've just rebuilt. I've built 10 salons from scratch now. Like it's not that hard. You just got to get in and after it. I mean, I'm training every single day.
But how did you get, for all those who want to open up a salon or a barbershop, I mean, how did you figure it all out?
You make a lot of mistakes. Like, experience is just like a ton of mistakes. That's all it is. You just gotta get out there and like make mistakes. Like my first salon, I got crushed on the lease. If you get crushed on the lease, it's pretty much the end of your business.
Oh, so you didn't listen to the Peter Mahoney podcast?
Yeah. No, I mean, that didn't exist 20 years ago when I got into it. You know, I started my first salon at 24. So, you know, like, and it wasn't just like a rinky-dink one. I took one of the, like, I took a 3,000 square foot space out in one of the highest rent districts in the world. You know, it was like, you know, and like I said, it was another 13 years before I paid myself more than I made behind the chair. So
wow. How big is this space?
This one is about, I think this one's 8,000. Yeah, I mean, I basically own or lease about 25,000 square feet company-wide.
Wow.
Which is about the size of a Whole Foods.
That's a weird perspective, isn't it?
Yeah. So, and it's expensive.
Yeah.
You know,
do you own this building, or do you?
I do not own this building. I wish I did, but this is probably one of the highest rent districts in the world. You know,
without a doubt.
It's brutal, and they would never sell. I would love to buy. They would never sell.
That's amazing. So, I kind of want to get into Kelly's other endeavors as well. So, furniture making or woodworking, and don't you have some stake in restaurants too?
Oh man, the restaurant thing. I mean,
I didn't set you up, man. You looked at me like I set you up.
Yeah, I did that once. It was the greatest 67 days of my life. Yeah, there's been some failures.
No. There's only been like learned opportunities.
You know, like you're young and you make mistakes and you move on. Like, you know, funny enough, I used something from the restaurant field. We had something in the kitchen called the Expo, and that person just sat in the kitchen and they like organized everybody. And they made sure the plates were fired on time and sent out at the same time, that sort of thing. So we brought that position into the salon. You know, when you have a 50-chair salon, you're losing people sometimes, which is strange, right? You just lose a guest. You don't know where they are. And so we have somebody that stands behind a board all day, and all they do is like logistics for the salon. So they know this client's in this chair, they're going to be at this shampoo bowl, I'm going to hand this toner, wooden toner's underneath the board made, and their time's on it and everything, and they hand it to that apprentice. That apprentice does the toner and stuff, and then they know that will be done at this time, and they'll hit this chair for the cutting department.
Whoa! How in the hell do you hire someone to do that? Are they air traffic controllers?
We literally just trained it, you know, and it was just like, to me, that's one of the most remarkable like changes in my business. Just having that expo is just insane, and it's the best thing we've ever done, I think.
So they just control like the flow of the floor.
They just control the flow of the guest, you know, like, and they're like on top of it. They're training constantly the apprentices and the shampoos, and you know, they're on top of that's like their world. They like run that world.
That's amazing. That truly is takes the experience to a whole nother level.
Yeah. And you know, and that sounds like fancy and fun, but like, you know, it took me to lose $1 million on a restaurant to like learn that lesson and to like create this position. And to me, like, it was worth it. Like, I had fun. I took a shot at something, and like, I lost miserably. I had fun with it. You know, I enjoyed the process. It took us 4 years to do it. And it was over for 67 days, and it was a fun process, and I gained some stuff from it. I gained some perspective, and I know I'll never do food again, but maybe a cocktail bar. We'll see.
Oh.
We'll see.
Secrets.
Yeah, a couple years down the line, but we'll see.
It'll be open for 54 days.
Yeah. Well, you know, people like to drink a little more than they like to spend $500 for a single plate. You know.
Right. Good call. So when did your interest in like woodworking and stuff? Was that with your friend in Nashville? Did you just kind of pick it up from there? Being great at anything, like being on the path to mastery, is like a process of learning how to learn. And so every year I learn 2 new things. I'm like, you know what? I'm interested in this. I'm going to learn these this year. And like every year I start off with 2 new things, and woodworking was one of those a long time ago. And then I ended up like, this is what people don't understand. It's like, you do an apprenticeship somewhere, right? Like, I apprenticed with this guy
who I met at a wedding in Spain. Caleb Woodard, and he like was like, come on out, check out the wood shop when you're back. And I was like, bro, like I'm not gonna. We just met at a wedding. Like we're not gonna hang out when we get back to the States, right? Like. And one day he called me up. I was bored as hell. I was just bored. I was like, man, someone called me to go drinking. And he called me and he was like, come on out to the wood shop. And I drove out to the wood shop. And I worked there for 8 years, about 2 to 3 days a week, just apprenticing. Like I never made any money. Like I helped him build all his furniture for his clients. I just had a ball doing it. And then it served me like really well, because I then turned that into salons, and like everything for me was learning something, figuring out a way to cross-pollinate it into the brands.
So how did you, you said 8 years, how'd you do that, like, and have a salon or work as a hairdresser, or what did that work
I
out?
don't know, like a lot of people have like hobbies and shit, and I don't have that. Like my hobbies are like work, and like I enjoy everything. Like I'll do these things, but like I'm working. Like if I'm on a golf course and I'm back in the car, I'm working. Like I don't golf, but like,
but I like the analogy. Yeah.
It's just like I never get to step away. Like when that's the thing that's cool about like being a stylist that I like really miss is like when you're done, you're done. There's nothing to think about before you come to work. There's nothing to think about when you leave work. Like that's dope.
No doubt.
Like I miss that.
But anybody out there who wants to purchase Hell's Bottom,
Yeah.
he could take the $75,000 chair on 9th Street.
Yes, please call me. I mean, I was a female hairdresser, so like I've learned. I cut men's hair, but I've learned that, and I'm not nearly as good as these guys, though. They're like it's a different ball game at the top.
That's amazing. What two things you're learning in here 2019?
Horseback riding was like a big one for me. Like I grew up around horses. I never learned to ride, so horseback riding, which I've already done earlier this year, and I want to do a little more training in that, and archery, weirdly enough.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
That's kind of my thing, man.
Yeah.
Like, not that I've done it, but like, I kind of feel the same. Like, I want to learn it and I want to do it.
Yeah.
I think I listen to too much Rogan, though, because he does talk about like archery.
Oh, yeah. I don't listen to him, but, I've got some plans, training to do that, but I don't know how I'm going to bring that back to the industry.
The two kind of work together, right?
Yeah.
I can see you rolling up on your horse with your bow and arrow.
If I can do them both together at the end of the year,
awesome.
you know I've done something.
Yeah, right. That's incredible. So do you go in with the idea that you're going to master these things?
I don't go in with like,
or you just want to learn?
I'm a dumb shit. Like, let me just be honest about this. Like, I'm a dumb shit. Like, I don't know anything outside of hairdressing. Like, I know them enough, but I only have time to master this. Like if I'm mastering something else, I'm taking away from time to do this. So I want to learn things, but I'm very careful to not go too deep down that like rabbit hole.
Oh, how do you do that?
It's really tough, because sometimes I took up pottery last year and I loved that, and I was like, dude, I could spend some time doing this, and then I just was like, I don't have that kind of time.
Everything.
Yeah, I don't have that time to give,
So do you consciously think like I'm going to learn two things? Like do you have like 2020 set out already?
I haven't started I'll think about that towards the end of the year. Yeah. I usually start to think about it towards the end of the year. I really have to like, I've got a lot of stuff going on, so I have to compartmentalize like what I'm thinking about, and like I said, like I really only know one thing well, and that's hairdressing. And like I know the industry inside and out. I've lived every part of it. I've charged $17. I was $300 when I retired, and I've booth rented, I've chair rented, I've been mostly commission based, and then I've been in salons that did both, and I've been in salons that compartmentalized. So I've run the gamut. I've done runway, I've done platform work, I've done it all. So I'm always trying to cross-pollinate that stuff and do what's best for the business.
Do you have anybody who rents or like a booth rent?
No, I don't actually have anybody in the company that rents or chair rents or anything like that. Yeah, it's just not something I ever got into. I don't really know that business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess that would kind of mess the flow up, because then if you're trying to, it's all about guest experience, and if they're kind of in control of their own chair or their own space, it would kind of, I guess, mess with the flow.
Yeah, bro, you hit that nail on the head. Like, the problem with that is a lot of times those guys are very like me first, and this can't be you first. It's got to be guest first. And so you gotta get people on the bus, as they say, to that believe in that and like live that lifestyle. And like you individually, like if I wanted to run a suite, I can control that, right? But if I start renting out chairs in my suite to other people I can't control, you know, then you're asking for more headaches than the money's worth. You know, remember, like a business doesn't just have to make profit. It's got to be you got to make enough profit to make it viable for the owner to want to stay in it. You know, and to me, that's going to take that takes real money to like want to like have all those headaches. You know,
that's a lot of responsibility.
Yeah.
How many I guess employees or stylists or barbers do you have?
I don't know. I have about 100 employees company wide. I can't tell you how many. I don't know. Probably like 60. I don't know. Somewhere in there.
Wow.
Wow. That's pretty great.
That's a lot of responsibility.
Yeah, I mean, like I'm not the guy sitting in the back room like counting the numbers and like, you know, I'm not Scrooge McDuck, you know, like I'm out there on the floor, I'm living in. I go through a feel and like how the guests feel and how the stylists feel, and you know, I'm doing it from that perspective. Like, to be honest with you, the money doesn't matter to me. Like, it's really about doing something different and like creating that stuff. And the money is ammunition. I look at money as like, okay, well, can I do this? Can I affect more people? You know, how can I do this on like a bigger scale and create more high paying jobs that, you know, people are happy with? But that's all money is to me.
And do you have like 401ks and stuff set up?
Yeah, we have 401k. We pay 65% of healthcare. We do a lot of benefits, like, you know. But honestly, man, you know, this is a young man's game. Like, people don't care about that. You know, they don't care about that. It's like nice to have all that stuff, shiny stuff, but you know, they don't care. They don't think.
They
don't
appreciate
think about
it later.
Yeah, you appreciate that when you get into your 40s. You know, like up until then, you know, like you're not thinking about that. Yeah, the average hairdresser like lasts what, you know, 5 years, right? Like the numbers are staggering against us, right? Like all the way across the board. Like I think like 10% of, and these numbers are so old. I learned these like 20 years ago, so they're probably changed. But like the numbers were like 10% of people like last 10 years, like 1% retire, right? Like I'm sure those numbers have probably changed a little bit as the monies went up, but the numbers were not good. But like small business, like you talk about like 60% of all small business fails in 5 years. You know, 80% of what doesn't fail in 5 years fails in the next 10, or in the next 5 years after that, in the first 10 years, right? Like the cards are stacked against you, and I think a lot of that is just like culture and like staying the course and like not changing just because somebody else is changing. Just trying to stay to the task.
That's just mind blowing.
It really is, right?
You know, and do you have a like a plan to open up any more barbershops or any more Immortal Beloveds? Do you?
No more salons. I don't think my bandwidth can take so. For example, like I think we have like 30-ish stylists at this in Immortal in DC. We have a support staff member for every stylist. So there's like another 30 people making their lives easy and comfortable, right? Like that's just a lot of management. So you know, now that I have 2 of these, it's kind of like, okay, that's my bandwidth. That's what the barbershop's a different thing. I could probably do 1 or 2 more of those before I think I'm at my peak. At my peak. And it just, the thing is, like, I'm getting older. I have a kid, and I just, you know, don't know how many more I want, you know. So I don't want to dilute this thing either. Like, if you start diluting it, then you're not, like, it's hard to stay at the top.
Is all your barbershops in DC, or do you have any in Richmond?
We have 1 in Richmond, 3 here. Yeah, and we, you know, we're like Amazon asked us to be a part of that project, so we'll take a look at that when they're ready, and we'll
the one in Northern Virginia.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think they're like 5 years out probably. So we'll take a look at that when they're done. I think. And
are they looking for a barbershop?
The barbershop. Yeah, they want the salon. Everyone wants the salon, but like I don't have any more interest in salons. You know, those days are done.
So is that how you negotiated? They're like, we want the salon. You're like, would you consider a barbershop?
No, they'll take either. They always push. You know, the agents were female, so that makes more sense to them.
Right.
So, you know, I see more value in the men out there than I do the women. So, but I got them to see my side very, very quickly.
With the numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I guess they're bringing 30,000 heads to that building, to the new headquarters.
Yeah, and you know, they'll be fun. I don't know what they're going to bring in, but they're good. It's a big it's a massive project, so we'll see. But I don't know. I mean, I don't know what's next. I don't like to have plans. I don't like to have thought. I think they're really unhealthy for me, because if I put something like a carrot, I'm gonna like do whatever I can do to get to that carrot. So I don't like to like just put random carrots. Like I like to grow organically. Someone a long time ago, I heard somebody call it forced growth. Like, you know, when you're busting at the seams, that's when you do the next one. You know, don't force it.
It kind of seems to be his philosophy, even like with his price increase and stuff.
Yeah.
As well, you know. Like,
Well, I mean, my philosophy is just to stay simple, man. Simple is everything. When you try to do like all these crazy things, it gets like out of control, and then there's no way to roll things back. And just simple. And then I believe in this thing called Kaizen, which is like small continuous tweaks, and just like simple, small, continuous tweaks. Just try to make everything a little bit better, a little bit nicer.
So does that philosophy work with like just get started and then kind of figure it out as you kind of go, or you know, what you know, if you were just to get started, like let's say you're not opening another salon. Let's say, you know, let's say you're 24 years old, you've been out of hair school for a couple of years, you want to open a salon. Is your philosophy to let's just start it and then we'll kind of tweak it and figure it out on the way, or what's your pre-planning?
Oh my gosh, no. That's what every time I go into school, like all these kids are like, oh man, like I'm gonna open a salon. I'm like, dude, go manage a salon for someone first. Do it for free. That's your apprenticeship. You never have to like I managed a salon and trained all his people for free for years before I started my first one. You know, and that was my apprenticeship. Like that's how you learn, right? If you go and you're like, man, I'm gonna open a salon because I hate this owner, or I want to work for myself, man, and it's like that's my goal. I want to work for myself, right? Like then you end up owning a job. You don't own a business, right? And I think that like in our industry, you really should take time to do it for someone else and make the mistakes with their money, you know? And that's your apprenticeship. That's that path to mastery we always come back to. Like, get on that apprenticeship part of like the management ownership side, and then break out on your own when you're ready, when you've got that like kind of honed.
Well said. I mean,
you ain't kidding, man.
Yeah, I mean, so many little light bulbs going off.
I mean, what's the point of opening if you're just going to fail in the first 5 years?
Right.
Like,
sense.
if you can't
Ego.
make more money,
Ego.
it always comes back to ego. If you can't make more money than you made behind the chair, what was the point? What was the point? And if the business can't survive without you there, what's the point? You just have a bunch of jobs that are not stable. You know.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't even know what to say after that, because that's.
Well, I mean,
that is the truth.
I'm going to go down the ego thing. So, like, I mean, we've all got it, right? We've all got the ego. So, like,
more than others? No, I'm just kidding.
But when you see it, how do you identify it, one, and then how do you kind of put it in check?
Man, it's like anything. Like you're on the path to mastery. You got to master yourself. You know, you got to go. Okay, is this like, did I think through this, or is my ego telling me what to do here? And sometimes you have to make the wrong decision to come backwards, right? Like, I don't know. It's like when you're young, you can't help but make the wrong decision, right? Like,
it's true,
It's
right? And then
the
when
only
you get
decision
older,
you know.
you made enough wrong decisions to go, is this my ego? Is this me being like, man, the world is wrong. I'm going to prove them wrong, right? Like, you know, what is it? Who's talking? You know, is it your ego or is it you? You know, and I mean, I don't consider myself a master of myself. Like that's a day in, day out job. Like I'm a normal human being like everybody else. I make mistakes. Like, you know, we're all fallible. We're all gonna make bad decisions, and it's how you pivot out of those bad decisions. Do you make it right, or what? You know, like, and my thing is like you can't live and die by policy. You got to be able to tweak and change and pivot.
Yeah. I know, right?
I know.
All these truth bombs.
Yeah, I mean, you know, when I first owned salons 15 years ago, salons are different. They're different. When I first opened salons, they were a different beast. They're a different animal today. You know, you got to change.
Which ways?
Well, I mean, one, like, think about, like, just from a perspective of color, right? Like, we used to, it used to all be foil, and before that it was caps. And, we've gone through all these things, and now it's painting, and all of a sudden it's like, shit, everybody wants to be a colorist. But up until that moment, everybody wanted to be a cutter. So you had 2 cutters for every colorist. Now it's almost like a 1-to-1 ratio again in salons. And like DC, is a different beast because I'm like one of the only salons that compartmentalizes. So, and I was the first, like basically the first of the game. There was a guy here that was doing it on like a kind of mid-scale perspective when I started, and but I didn't really have a lot to look after. You just have to go and make mistakes and like learn them. But like you got to miss small. You can't just go in and like make a huge mistake. You got to like miss small.
Like
it's
a bad
be
lease.
Educated. Yeah. You make a bad lease, that's the end of business in 5 years. You can't come back from that. You can't come back from a bad lease. Because a lot of times your money for your build out is wrapped up in that space, right? Like you've made a bad lease and you're stuck in like a deal that you can't get out of, or you're stuck in a deal that made you no money. You basically made the landlord rich, like.
Well, how did you figure that out? I mean, you made it.
I made bad decisions.
Right. But how did you figure out what not to do, or what,
So like I said, like my first lease was bad. Then I learned leases, and I wish I would have learned it before, but I was like a young ego maniac hairdresser, and I was just like going at the speed of light,
So you just figured out what, like in the lease, this is what's killing me?
Oh yeah, when I was like spending $17,000 a month in rent on a space when I was 24, like I was like, dang, all my money just went out the door. I was like, luckily I did a little bit of money behind the chair, and so I was able to like move on from that. But my second one I did right. It's like something I always say, it's like do it right the second time. It's like because a lot of times there's no way to know what you don't know until you get in there and do it.
Yeah, that's right. When we did the podcast with Peter, like it's you're so vulnerable because it's the first time you've ever done it, and you're so excited about it. It's like buying your first car. You're excited about this, and like you said, like almost everybody in hair school at some point is like, I want to do it. I want to open my own salon. So it is the most vulnerable time, and you're about to make the most expensive commitment that you've ever made.
Yeah, and a lot of times, landlords are not going to let, look, you're a hairdresser in a hair salon, right? You have, like, no business plan, likely. And if you have a business plan, it's probably a joke, right? Like, even when you do good business plans, they're never correct. Like, you're like, you don't even get close to the numbers a lot of times. And so, like, you're taking these to a landlord, and they're like, come on, what do you have to show me, right? Mm-hmm. So you almost have to get screwed on your first lease to get your foot in the door.
Wow.
Like, it is just part of the process. So you have to make sure that you have an out, like that you can get out of that and move on.
How long did it take you to get out of that first lease? Or are you still in it?
No, that's a funny story, but we don't have time to get into it. But I had a partner, and I learned things and forced her to buy me out. And then I got out of that, and then I took a loan. I didn't have a lot of money at the time because, like I said, the lease was draining me, and I was young too, so I was spending a lot of money eating and drinking, and and like I took a loan I was playing a lot of poker at the time, so I took a loan from a guy that like we'll just say you pay back quickly.
Right.
But like a lot of people don't have that. That was my networking really. And that was the game for me. If I didn't have that networking, I would have never had the second salon, and because no bank was going to lend me the money I needed for the second one, and I needed it. Like I went in, talked to the dude, and he was like, come hang out tomorrow for lunch. I walk in, and he had a blank check. It's like, basically just tell me what you want. I was like, all right, this is what I want. He was like, now I don't have to say anything about this. Like, you're going to pay this back. And I was like, yes, sir. Yes, sir, I'm going to pay it back. And I paid that dude back in 9 months.
Whoa. Wow. And it was a big nut.
It was a big nut. I put that salon together very, very fast. And I, it put a different fire under me the second time. I started to I had already built my first salon up. I learned a lot of things, and the second one, I did it right. And that was the beginning of Immortal Beloved.
Wow. Let's talk about that. Where'd you come up with the names? Because I think the names of both your salon and your barbershop are just rad.
Oh, man, names are the worst thing ever.
Tell me about it.
Bro, naming something is the worst. It's worse than naming kids, man. I was trying to name something. I try to name everything something sexy or mysterious without like it having anything to do with hair or me, and I think that's important. So those names were Immortal was from a love letter from Beethoven, where he called someone like some mysterious lover his immortal beloved, and I was just like, that's the sexiest thing ever. There's nothing that can compete with that. And the letters are sexy, and I was just like, that's the name. I kept coming back to it, and I was like, that's the name. And everybody was like, dude, what are you opening, bro? Like, it's like this is like a goth church, or like it's just, is this a funeral parlor? Like, what's going on? And I was like, just wait. And then when we opened, everybody was like, oh, okay, it makes sense. Because the thing is, like, names don't matter. Everybody thinks the name matters. The name doesn't matter. Once you open, people will start to like relate that with this.
The most popular word in the world is Google.
Yeah.
Which means nothing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, they just don't matter. And like every book I read was like, you got to name something like about what you did or whatever. And I was like, everybody does that. How does that win? Right? Like simple game theory tells us that like if we do the opposite of what everybody else's strategy is, then we win. Right? So like that to me, that was a no-brainer.
And then Hell's Bottom.
Hell's Bottom was just the name of the neighborhood post-Civil War. So post-Civil War, every neighborhood in Washington, D.C. had like pretty aggressive names, like New York still does, and except for we got rid of ours. Like they kind of one day were like, let's just name everything after generals or something, and that's what they did. And the new names are like, but the old names are cool, man. They were dope. They were like Murder Bay and Blood Fields and like cool, like really like aggressive.
That's tight.
Basically DC was like an encampment after the war. Like what populated DC was all the people that were left behind. Like when the war dispersed and the soldiers went home, like the camp followers were basically what populated DC afterwards. And that's why like everything was pretty rough.
That's crazy. I did a walking tour in Federal Triangle, which is like one of the most expensive, again, like you said, real estates in the country. Yeah. But during the Civil War, there were 28 brothels. Oh man, yeah. In Federal Triangle, So and it was the most dangerous spot in the entire area to be.
When I was a teenager here, there were still brothels everywhere. They're gone now, I think. But like there were brothels everywhere. There were like.
Why did you do think in quote marks?
Oh well, I mean, I never really knew. I mean, I've never been to a brothel. That's not me, but.
So you brought up a lot of books. What are some of your favorite books, or what are some of the books that you would recommend for people?
And do you really read, or do you do it like us, like audibles?
No, I mean I do both. I read a lot, but I don't suggest it. Like even for myself, I read so many books, but like once a year, I usually take a few months off just to distill the information, because you can get like really confused fast. Like books are great, like but. I don't know. I think sometimes they just start simple. Just be simple. Do what's authentic to you. Like I'm not a big fan of like I have a thirst for knowledge, but like I don't think any of those books have helped me, because a lot of them don't have anything to do with salons, and like I don't think I've ever read something where I was like, oh my God, that's gonna change my life.
That's the answer right there.
Yeah, I'm listening to a book right now. I listened to it in the car. Extreme Ownership, and I brought this up once before. It's just
Jocko Willink.
Yeah. I like about that because it's all about if you're leading, and if it's failing, instead of blaming everybody, look at yourself, right? And that's
I mean, I looked at that book as more of a self-help book. He's dude, if you don't get motivated reading his books, man, come on, you're not human.
Right. Yeah.
That guy has a podcast too, right?
I think he does now. Yeah. I think Joe had him on, and he was like, man, I can do this. So,
right. Well, Joe's always like, do it. He's like, everybody should have a podcast.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, is why we're sitting here today.
Oh, that's cool.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks, Gary.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's important. I mean, sharing this knowledge with people and like getting to these like nitty gritty situations is like so important to the industry. You guys and I have talked about that several times in the past, and I think it's important.
100%. So what kind of advice would you give?
To what? To which part? Which part?
Yeah.
I think if you're talking about ownership, if you're talking about ownership in particular, I think like unless you have this feeling that you have to do it, like you don't have any other choice, don't do it. Right? Like I just don't. If you're not doing it for the right reasons, don't do it. If it's not there to like to be about the stylist and the guests, don't do it. If it's about you, you're gonna lose.
But as an owner, your guest is the stylist. Is that kind of what you're saying?
I mean, in my opinion, like the most important person for me is the stylist. The most important person for the stylist is the guest. You know, I have to do both, but like I do keep it in perspective that my job is the stylist first.
And that's what I was going to bring up. Was, you know, if you're doing it for you because you just want to own something, then yeah, you'll probably get stuck in that. But if you're doing it like you said, if you're doing it for the guest, if you're doing it for the stylist, then you're building something.
Yeah,
you know.
And you have to know, man. You have to know like that you're in it for that. You know, you have to know like you want to elevate it to that degree. And just think about their perspective. Like when they walk in the salon, think about everything that could possibly go wrong. Like there's only so many things that can go right or wrong in the business. Just think through it, right? Like you don't need to read a book for that. Just go over and say, hey, like, you know, if when you're, for example, this is small, like someone walks in the door, like who's more important, the person on the phone or the guest that just walked in, right? Like, and you see people stand at the desk forever while someone's sitting on the phone. Like, come on, man. Who's more important, the person that's chilling at their like desk in their office or the person who's standing right in front of you that's a guest in the business? Right. You know, take care of them. And that's just like a tiny thing. But like, you know, if you haven't fixed something like that, come on. Start there.
I mean, let's talk about that a little bit. Like, what are your systems? Do you own any of your systems, or they're always being tweaked? And is systems the key for you to?
Keeping it simple. Like I've created a bunch of systems and stuff in place, and like, but you know, they rarely like stand the test of time. You know, like things change, and you know, you get larger. Like things that happen, things you did when you were 12 chairs are not going to be the same things you're going to do when you're 50. Right? Like someone yesterday was like, why don't we give spring water like this other salon? I was like, dude, come on. Like they have 4 chairs, we have like 50. Think about the logistics of having a bottle of water on hand for the 2,000 clients we see a week, right? Like you can't. Where do you store that? Like, and think about the impact that has on the environment, right?
Right.
Like I don't want that on my hands. You know, like we're not a cafe. Like we have nice coffee. We buy like really nice coffee. Like some of the places we have like cold brew. We have like Nutella or the Nespresso machines. You know, we have like nice teas. But at the end of the day, like people are buying haircuts. You know, like don't ever lose perspective of that, right? Like that is where you spend your effort, and then the other stuff is like it's nice, like little fun, pretty things that you play with. You know,
Mr. Kelly, do you have anything that you want to promote or talk about, or what are you up to?
Oh man, no, not really. I don't, you know, like, I mean, at the end of the day, this industry isn't about me; it's about everybody else. And you know, there's a lot of good people out there, and you know, I'm just another cog in the wheel. And I want everybody to realize that, like, you know, everybody, we're all in this thing together. But you know, and that competition is necessary. But at the end of the day, like even me, man, I'm just a salon owner. I know nothing. You know, I know nothing outside of the salon. And like, I think people need to keep that in perspective. Like right now we're seeing like this kind of like glorification of the mid-scale on Instagram and the world. And I think people need to like remember that like things swing back, you know, like you start to see the change in the swings back and forth, and just people need to keep in perspective that this industry is about the guest and the human, and like it's not always about you and celebrity. And you know, like we're 3 guys rocking sweatshirts and like jeans and like flat brim caps and, you know, big beards and that sort of thing. And like, you know, Kyle, you always talk about that Mount Rushmore of like hairdressers and stuff, and I'm like,
that's a true listener right there.
Yep.
You know, and you're talking about like, dude, come on, man. David Mallett's now open in New York from Paris, right? Like, come on. Like, where's like the love for that guy? Like, where's the love for like Nick Arojo's done it right for like 20 years now? Where's the love for these people? You know, like, And the industry needs to like wake up, man. Like no one invented craft hairdressing. Craft hairdressing's been here for ages. I was cutting bangs off like 30 years ago. I wasn't even doing hair yet. Like we were doing that like at the beginning. Like we all get into this industry and like we think that like no one's ever done that before, but they have, you know.
Yeah, right. I guess people just rebirth old. It's kind of just rebirth it in a different, edgy way, but it's been around. It's, you know what I mean. People. And
it really, at the end of the day, doesn't matter.
No.
Like the only thing I care about is like I don't care if my section is perfect. Like, does the guest love their haircut or not? That's all that matters. Period. Like, if you're not thinking about, you know, here. Oh my gosh, yeah. Now I'm going down a rabbit hole.
Oh boy, let's go.
But like, I mean, think about it from this perspective. Most of our industry is letting somebody from the 60s cut their haircuts for them. Like,
explain.
Vidal Sassoon made repeatable haircuts a thing in the 60s. Now, that was in whatever time period he did it. Like, and that was like important, right, for the industry. But that was just like a small cog in the thing, right? Like, it allowed us to like train and talk technique, but we forgot the eye. We forgot the eye. You can't do, it's not binary. You can't just be like super clean in section, and you can't just be eye. You got to do both. And like, you got to be on that path to mastery and be able to like do all of that. And I think people just forgot about that. And like right now we've really glorified that sectioning pattern and that thing, and we forgot about like the hairdressers that are doing it. But which is funny because that's all editorial work is, and that's what we all look up to and aspire to do. But like that isn't sectioning patterns. That's people who have trained their eye for decades.
I mean, this is a weird conversation, but I kind of, when you said that, I kind of think of Philip, because I think Philip's kind of mastered both ends.
Yeah.
You know, like Philip's got this amazing eye for haircuts, but he's also got this incredible eye for finishing as well.
Yeah.
You know.
And it's all of that. It's like, you know, and then like from there, you know, I think that's huge. I mean, how many hairdressers are out there doing that, right? Like, because so few make it to 10 years in the industry, right? How many hairdressers are thinking about it from that perspective? Like, I know this table, it's got some years of experience, you know? But like,
we got 100 at this table, man.
Right.
Yeah. And so I think it's important to keep it in perspective. Like, you need that. Like, that's a part of the process. Like, that's a part of the path to mastery, but that ain't the end game. Being like really clean at sectioning pattern ain't going to win you any money in this industry. Like, you really have to like get to the other side of that and like start to visualize. And that one of the things that I think that's really tough about Instagram is that you know, upscale hairdressing is a feeling, and Instagram, you can't feel someone's haircut. It's flat, it's two-dimensional, right? Like, you can't feel how good that was cut and like what the feeling of that haircut was. Only the guest knows that. And like, we've lost that, right? Because the thing about Instagram is like it's bobs and curled, right? When you get off of that and you start doing like really funky haircuts, they don't always, or like really good haircuts, they don't really look great on Instagram, right? That's why everybody irons everything out. So it's like I'm like excited for a return, because I feel like Instagram's slowing down. I'm excited for like a return to hairdressing. You know, the other day, like I was in a school and they were like, how do we build our book? How do we build our book? Like, how do we do it on Instagram? And I was like, dude, if you don't have skill, you don't have anything. Like, skill, right? Like, Instagram isn't going to get, it might get you a client in the door, but is it going to like allow you to keep them, right? Like, I mean, I worked for 17 years before Instagram was even a thing. Like, how did we get our clients back then? We did it by being really freaking good at our job. I was going to cuss right there, but I didn't hold back.
Why hold back now? You've already dropped a couple.
Oh man, you know, get me talking. I'll do that every now and then. But I think it's important to understand that, like, you know, without skill, we have nothing. And I'd like to see the industry like start to like care more about the skill and the hairdresser behind the chair.
Yeah, and, you know, like, I don't know, I might sound like I'm constantly saying this, but yeah, it's all about wanting and growing and learning, and you know, and people like you that are willing to give and give back to the industry, and you know, and give in a way that's going to help, you know, I'm not saying the younger generation, but you know, the next generation just kind of just hone in their craft, their skill, right?
Yeah, I think if you're touching on like a really deep point there with me. Like, if you look at it from like our perspective, right? Like on a daily basis, like what are we really doing? We're cutting some hair, right? Like I'm cutting 10 to 15 guests a day, right? I'm impacting 10 to 15 people. But if you start to like look at a global perspective of this, like we're like beautifying the world over like its existence, right? Like as one person, we're nothing. But when you back up and look at us as an industry, it's huge, right? And so my thing is, do you want to look back and be happy and like that you left the legacy that where people care and they're well trained? Like that's what training is for me. It's not a popularity thing. Like I do it because I like people and I want them to do well and I want them to be big parts of like the industry going forward, because that's what the industry was really good to me as it's been to you guys, and like that's a big part of it, is just passing that knowledge on through the apprenticeship mentor model.
Boom.
Yeah, truly appreciate it, brother.
Yeah, man.
Kelly, man, this was awesome. There's just so much truth and I
there's
like
there's so much information still inside his head that we haven't even pulled out. So
I know. We're gonna have to sit down some more, man.
Right.
Stay tuned for Kelly Part 2.
Right.
Right.
Anytime, let's film that now. Or what is you tape
Record,
that?
yeah,
Record.
People say they watch the podcast all the time.
I'm old,
so.
it's tape. Everything's taped.
I'm so old at 8-track. It's not even can record it.
But I think let's just say like we need every part of this industry. Like we're all in this together. This is all one industry, but it's segmented. But we're all one industry. We need it all. Like there can't be any of this like, nah, man, they're not doing it right. Nah, man, they're not cutting right. Like we need it all. You need bad hairdressers just as much as you need good hairdressers.
Amazing. Mr. Kelly Gorsuch.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much for joining us on your day off. Hey, so there it is. Hey, this is a message that we've been trying to bring, I don't know, for the last couple months, actually since we started the podcast. Hey, so if you like the podcast or if you find that it's useful, please leave us a review, a 5-star review on iTunes. Leave us a rating and a review.
But if you don't like it, forget about it.
Yeah, totally forget about this message. We also want to thank Sarah and Blaine from Pretty Gritty. Sarah and Blaine, they are a band out of Portland, Oregon, and we just want to thank them very much for allowing us to use their song, Pleased to Meet You, on our podcast. That's cool. I think you can find, actually you can find their music on iTunes.
Peace and hair grease.